Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's a Full Press Hockey Weekly show here on a Monday. I'm your host, the voice of Full Press Hockey, Jim Berenger, alongside Chris Wassel. When he appears from the darkness on the backside, Ian Glennon, our producer, he's entered the light. Here he is, back from the abyss. Chris Wassel, ladies and gentlemen.
I come from the dead.
He
To the
comes from
living.
the dead. We are back for another week here on the Full Press Hockey Weekly Show. Get it at Full Press NHL on Twitter, fullpresshockey.com. Also, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, Full Press Coverage. Conference finals are underway. And I have to say, give a shout out to our producer, Ian. When we did show last week, we both said, we agreed that, but he brought it up, that the Eastern Conference Final would be a very low-scoring affair. You would take the under in most nights. And he was dead on. So ding, 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 ding for you. But no, I don't think anybody expected a 4-overtime marathon in Game 1. But the fact that both conference finals have seen both Games 1 and 2 go to overtime means that these series are pretty even.
Hey, who knew that, we would complain about overtime games when all most fans want half the time is overtime games.
Exactly, because we didn't get enough of them this playoff season.
We really didn't. We had that second round where it was just like, oh, well, yeah, it's great. You hammer the puck line on the one side and you just walk off and smile. Not this round. No. You're not getting away that easy. And of course, as always, tight affair tonight, probably tight affair tomorrow, and Dallas.
And so on and so forth down the line, right?
Yeah, you know what? You can't really complain about this. And the fact that Vegas is the most northern city, technically, yeah.
Just a little bit. It's not much.
By a whisker. It's not
by
a
lot.
whisker.
It's by a whisker. But it's good. This is exactly what the NHL wanted. You have 4 non-traditional, quote unquote, non-traditional hockey markets. I think I can call, because I've been there a few times. I think I can call Raleigh a hockey town, and I think I can call it a hockey market because, let's be honest, they have a lot of diehard fans there. It's a great building. The tailgate's awesome. The food's great, and they have a great product, and they win. Now, they can be a little hypocritical at sometimes because at the beginning they didn't want that Hartford Whalers stuff around, but now they're embracing it. But that's all right. But I think Carolina is definitely a hockey state now. I think Florida has turned into a hockey state for what the Lightning have done and the Panthers. And you got to give it up for South Florida, Miami with the Heat, and now with the Panthers. I mean, it's everybody's going wild down there.
It's nuts. For those that don't know, basically Miami, since being down in the second half of their playing game with Chicago, has lost what? 1-2 games?
Yeah.
That's it. Florida, since that, pivotal point way back in round uno, has basically won, 7-8 straight road games. I think they've won 9 of 10 overall. Bobrovsky's won about 16 billion overtimes. Okay, that's a slight exaggeration, but he is 13-4 in his career in overtime, which is bordering on 86 and 93 Patrick Waugh levels, if you will.
Yeah, that's really scary. But we know what Patrick Waugh did that year, and he won a Conn Smythe Trophy in '86, and then he won it again in '93, and then he won it again in 2001 with the Colorado Avalanche. The only year he didn't win one was in '96. Joe Sakic got it that year, but he still was remarkable for his playoff runs and what Bob is doing. I don't think anybody's seen him play this good in his career.
For this long.
Yeah, and it's like, you think about it. The beginning of the year, he was all right. Last year, he was all right. Year before, he was all right. You have to go back to when Columbus upset Tampa in 2019 when he played this well. And, outside of the, Columbus just not scoring against Boston, I mean, he was the reason why a lot of those games were so close.
Yeah, that Columbus-Boston series should have been a blowout sweep every game. It
And it,
wasn't
and
close.
it wasn't. And it wasn't.
For those that don't know, I mean, Boston was from Natural Stats Trick. I think one of the guys got this from that series. Boston was averaging something like 4.5 to 5 goals expected a night at even strength. That's not all situations, just even strength. It was pretty frightening.
And
So,
it's pretty frightening what he's done because since he's come in and we documented it last week and I've documented it on the Full Press dailies and when I was on the show with Ian and Scott, the other day and John and talking about all that stuff. The fact that they Paul Maurice decided Alex Line could get us so far and
mhm.
decided to make the switch because he had to. He's a $10 million goalie. You're paying him this much money to be here. Like, he has to be the guy. Now, granted, there's no Spencer Knight because everybody thought he was going to be the guy going forward. But he's taken the reins. He's worked hard. He works hard after practice, after morning skates. Like, he's the guy. And I think he loves being the guy. And all the work he's put in and the saves he's made, this is a reason why he's going to be up for the Conn Smythe Trophy if the Florida Panthers get there. Because the saves, go back to game 2. He makes a save in the second period with his blocker. If Carolina scores there, we don't know what the game's going to be. They were outshot 20-8 in the first period. The only reason was 1-0 was offside review and Bobrovsky.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, I know people will argue and they'll go back to the Toronto series with the goal that, yeah, well, the
That
line, but not
probably
the
was
line.
in. It was
It was
probably
probably
in.
in,
It
but
was probably
Bobrovsky's
in.
Bobrovsky's sleight of hand trick, if you will, or we call it nice veteran move. He kind of hit it just long enough, and it worked. But the thing is this: Toronto could not score 3 goals on him.
I don't,
It's that simple.
I don't think anybody scored 3 goals on him outside of Boston, right?
Boston did it in every game. But you got to remember the shot quality that Boston had. And people are going to forget this. And Ian, mute yourself for just a second. But Boston had grade A chance after grade A chance in some of those games. And Bobrovsky was there. I mean, let's put it this way. In that series, Bobrovsky made the timely saves he needed to make. Against Toronto, he started making all the saves he needed to make. Against
And
Carolina, he's just ticking off Carolina at this
they're
point.
getting frustrated, and you can see it.
It's in
Like
their heads.
they're a well structured team, and Florida is taking them apart 2 well-structured teams. And I think Carolina's still playing better defensively than Boston did and Toronto did with the forecheck and dealing with it. But you
Mm-hmm.
could see that the forecheck gets to Carolina's defensive structure, and when it does, it opens up lanes for them to take advantage of, as what we saw with the Barkov goal, which was a beautiful goal, by the way. Oh, by the way, special uh, Alexander Barkov, Jason Robertson, Behringer push. It's real. It's real, folks. I highlighted both of those players before the season started. The series started for both of them. Said those guys had to be X factors for their teams to win. Obviously, Dallas is down 0-2, but he's got 2 goals in 2 games. Barkov, 2 goals in 2 games as well. And it's
Right.
trademarked. Absolutely.
Right. It would be 2-0 Dallas if Peter DeBoer could find a way to staple gun Ryan Suter to a bench in the third period.
Which he needs to do, but more on that later.
Yeah, shimmy
So
that.
I saw somebody make this comment after game 1, after Frederick Anderson plays 4 overtimes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, somebody put a comment up, and I'm not going to say who it was, and it's not a right or anything like that. But we can talk about that too. But it was a friend of mine, and he's like, "Oh, it's a panic move by Carolina." I was like, "How is it a panic move when the guy's as old as he is and is injury prone? You have 2 good goalies. Ronta's there for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like he didn't play. He played a great game too.
Yeah, people have to remember the fact that, look, both games are close. Both games were decided by 1 goal, although arguably you can make the case that Florida should have won it regulation in game 2. Or you can make even the funner argument that Florida should have won earlier in game 1.
I think that's the right call. I think that
I
was the
know
right
it's
call.
I know it's the right call, but you can
I think
always,
it's the right call. I think it was the right call.
ultimately it was.
Right.
But,
And
you know,
ultimately, the team that the review went against won. So
anyway, hey,
anyway,
what do you know? But I get why people sit there and say it's sort of a panic move, but at the same time, look, you know, you hate to say this, Carolina put themselves in this position in the first place by signing these two goalies. So by putting them, by being put in that position, you have to sit there and roll the dice here. You can't have Frederick Anderson. You can't expect him to play a highly intensive game two after playing a game one like that. And no one wants to hear that in Carolina. And you know what? I don't blame them. I really don't. But that's the reality. And we all know from playoffs past that Frederick Anderson, when fatigued or tired or late in series, does tend to falter. So it makes some sense.
I think they go to Ronta either way. I think if they win game one, I think Ronta's playing game two.
I get it. Yeah, it
I,
was one
I,
of those
I I
things
think
where
I think it's I think either way. I think that Brendan Moore's going to Ronta. I don't think Anderson's playing game two. It's not like the move that we saw in round one where Gustafson is younger and could have played game two and should have started game two, and they went to Marc Andre Fleury, which made no sense whatsoever and cost them the series. Um, that to me was just not the right move. But this to me makes sense. You have a goalie who's older, he's injury prone. You have Ronta there. Ronta started the playoffs. Like he's there for a reason. Both of these guys aren't going to be here next year. You know
right.
that. Like you know that. So might as well ride both of them.
Yep.
And look, Bobrovsky's playing out of his mind right now. Matthew Tkachuk's on another level. This is the reason why Florida got him. He's
Yep.
playing otherworldly. His celebrations are great. Let's go out, walk off style. Let's just go down the tunnel, out. We're gone. Like peace. Like we'll go celebrate in the locker room, busting 10. Like see ya. We're out. And I don't blame him after the 4 overtime game. By the way, that 4 overtime game really good. Play wasn't that sloppy. We've seen games years gone by where it's gone really sloppy. The quality chances were there. Teams went in spurts, and ultimately it was a good shot that won the game. And then Kachuk's like, yeah, we're out. I'm not celebrating on the ice. Like, yo, peace.
Yeah. For those that don't know, amusingly, I really thought this was going to go to a fifth overtime. So with about half a minute left in overtime number 4, it's like, do I make an angle to go down the stairs and get a snack? Now let me stick around. Wise move, obviously, as Kachuk scored with about 13 seconds left or so in overtime number 4. This wasn't the mysterious case of Peter Sikora scoring like 30 seconds into overtime number 5, for example, where it's like you come back and go, wait, oh, ESPN started the game too early. Oops, which has happened before.
Yeah, that Connor McDavid game 6 Vegas game
I
that
I got
shit.
the I got to see that amusingly because I had the Canadian stream and people are like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh,
It
it's
started.
it started already, and
I
there's
just
three,
but
three goals."
the thing was they were on the bottom line. If you watch in ESPN, it said the game was going to start on ESPN2 anyway. So I
Yeah,
just flipped to ESPN2, so I didn't have to see that stupid split screen that they did.
yeah, yeah. And again, this is something that people have to understand. It's like it's going to happen. I hate to say it, you really do have to be more prepared than you used to be because of the way these playoffs are being broadcasted.
Yes,
So
you
yeah,
do.
and here's something. Now, I don't know how this is going to go going forward because obviously, it's early in each series. But Jim, if I did the math from the other, at least from the game ones, the ratings didn't suffer quite as much as expected. If
No, the
anything,
rating the ratings did pretty well actually,
they
especially
stayed
for
kind of
they stood poet they stood pat.
yeah.
They for 4 overtime game, the viewers stayed pretty much consistent. Game 1 of Dallas and Vegas was really good. I'm interested to see tomorrow. uh, you know, when Tuesdays come out, what Saturday and Sunday look like,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously what tonight looks like. But they do pretty well. I mean, most of the time, I think I think people watch the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's not like, oh well, Boston's not there. Oh, I'm not gonna watch this. It's like you're gonna watch the Stanley Cup playoffs because of the overtimes right now. People are gonna just watch because you don't know what's coming next. Like that's what people are watching right now, and they don't know. And there's an excitement around the game, and the matchups are really good. Like it's not like they're bad matchups. Like Florida has a great. Each team has their own story, and it's cool.
Right.
You have Vegas, you have Dallas. It's a rematch of 2020 in the bubble. Florida, what they're doing, and it's being talked around other sports. Like Brooks Koepka wins the PGA, and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna go watch the P's tomorrow." I'm like, "Wait, that's what you reference them as?" So,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, there's a really funny story there. Although I'm not gonna lie, Scotty Scheffler, our Jersey boy.
yeah,
You had not just dunk tanked it Saturday morning with a 40 on the front nine. We would be celebrating in New Jersey right now.
yeah.
But alas, not meant to be. But yeah, I mean, again, I wonder if Ekblad is going to give Mr. Kafka some new shooting tips, perhaps.
I hope he does. But it's funny because Florida, like I said, great story, Kachuk, but Montour's really emerged even with Ekblad back. It feels like it's Montour's blue line now, just because of the injuries Ekblad's had, and Paul Maurice has got this team going the right way. And this, watching this first period feels like it's game 3 of Devils and Rangers. Who's going to make the first mistake? And this is a turning point for the series. If Florida goes up 3-0, this series could be over quick. If they don't, look out, Carolina's got mojo now. And look, it's all well and good. You win these 2 overtime games, but look, you got to keep playing the same way. Carolina's not going to be a team that gets frustrated at all.
No, I mean you saw a couple. Well, you saw Rod Brindamore get a little angry in period number uno, but sorry, that's Rod Brindamore, evil Bond henchman, in training. It's just how he is as a personality. The players are not frustrated by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Bobrovsky makes a few more saves tonight, like one or two that he made in the first period. Might get a little irritated, but again, Frederik Andersen's matching him save for save right now. Play is pretty even for the most part. Refs are kind of letting them play
A little bit.
a little bit. Couple good whacks in there. No Marty Birder axe chops.
No.
That happened to plop on my YouTube timeline of all things
Oh,
today.
great. Yeah, great memory.
The Birder axing of Gilbert Dion
Yep.
from the
Right in front of
'95
the net.
playoffs.
Right in front of the net.
That still happens in today's NHL, folks.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But so going over to the West, you mentioned it earlier.
Mhm.
Ryan Suter. I mean, the Dallas had game 2 all wrapped up. Even game 1, they were right there. Defensive mistakes in both of those games cost
Mhm.
them. Ryan Suter's just not looked great. And yesterday too, in the final goal, like Jack Eichel makes a great pass to Jonathan Marchessault. It's the original Golden Misfits getting the job done. Uh, in the overtimes and in the regulation times, like they're figuring a way to get it done. Aiden Hill, give credit to Sean Burke. He's got his numbers up 5-1 since taking over for Laurent Brossoit. Jake Onger's looked human this playoff run. And look, Dallas's defense needs to be better. I mean, they're 2 minutes away from tying the series, as Mark Stone called it. The third period was boring hockey. It was. But Vegas found a way to stick with it and get the win.
Now, something that we had noted, I had noticed early in Game 1, and it's kind of a pattern that uh, Vegas has followed in this series so far to a good deal of success. Instead of shooting high on Ottinger for the most part, Vegas is doing a lot of bank plays, a lot of things down low. They're coming from the middle of the ice down towards Ottinger. They're not necessarily creating traffic all the time, but they're creating the impression of there being traffic. And the Howden goal, for example, is just a good example of them staying low and catching Ottinger maybe being a little too active around the net. And that obviously that puck that bounces in game 1 is a telltale example. But again in game 2, Same kind of things happening. Pass down low, bank past them, from Marcia. So, and it's like you see the repeated pattern. Even on the play that ties the game, you in game 2, you see where that pass is fast and low. There's no air to that puck. It's
No.
where it has to be. And there is no way a mid-30s defenseman is going to get to that, especially when they're already beat. And to be honest, you can't put it all on Ryan Suter in the sense he should have been there, but even if he's there, does he get have the wherewithal to get to that puck? You really don't know. It's that quick sort of passing that Vegas has used, and again, the bounces off the boards. And the funny part is Dallas was using this early in game 2, and it was extremely effective, and then they stopped. That's what's odd. It's like Dallas, in a weird sort of sense, is this role reversal, Jim, in some bizarre sense, where, remember, in the bubble, Vegas had not a hot power play those first couple of rounds, but it was pretty darn good. And then they hit that wall, and they went thud. Could the same thing kind of be happening here a little bit, where Aiden Hill's getting, and the Vegas penalty kills getting in the heads of the Dallas special teams? Because look, Dallas is 0 for 11 on power play this year.
Yeah, but didn't they score a power play goal?
Yeah, but I mean that was kind of a fluky sort of,
Yeah. Yeah, but you still scored a power play goal, so
it's weird. I mean, there's you don't want to say there's a pattern because now you can't really say there's one.
right. But still, their power play is definitely struggling more so now than it was in rounds past. You
right.
could definitely see it.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's kind of degraded since round 1 against especially games 4 through 6 against Minnesota.
Yeah, it's definitely gone down, and obviously Ottinger's not playing like he has been, or played like he did in Game 7 or like he did in Game 6 against Minnesota. But maybe the Dallas team is just getting tired and fatigued. I mean, they have a lot of older players on the team. I mean, look, we're not having this conversation if Wyatt Johnson scores early, and it's always a chance at one end leads to a goal at the other. So look, Wyatt Johnson scores, this series is tied at 1-1, and we're not having this discussion right now, but he didn't. And look, it's not to say Dallas is out of the series by no means. I mean, both of the teams that are trailing could come back and even the series up easily. We've seen it in the past, but it's very rare. But look, Vegas is playing well. They're playing on a different level right now. They're playing as a team. They're better than the team that went to the final in their first season. This is the reason when they went out and got Pietrangelo, they got Martinez, they went out and got Eichel. They lost to a good Dallas Stars team in a bubble, and they needed a team to be better. And you're seeing it, all healthy, with the original misfits kicking in. Yeah, would you want it to be Logan Thompson or Robin Leonard or somebody else? Yeah, you probably want your starting goaltender, but ask Bill Ranford if he wants to give that Stanley Cup ring back in 1990.
Nope.
So it's Aiden Hill's net until it's not Aiden Hill's net. And the way they play defense in front of him, his record's going to get better because they're just on a different level right now, and you can tell.
They're playing smart, and look, Hill's playing smart. I mean, look, history lesson for those that are not as old as us. The Sean Burke style goes back probably a good 35 years.
88, baby.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those things that happened to be on locally in New Jersey for us the other night. The MSG Devils on the Rise series in its entirety.
Ooh,
which is kind of nice to watch.
That's a great series.
Kind of nice to watch it strung along because it offers you different perspectives of what a growing franchise is not only up to, but some behind the scenes stuff that I hadn't seen since I was a kid. But obviously, one of the big things was people forget that because of the Olympic break that year, the Devils had to wait for Sean Burke. They got Sean Burke at the trade deadline, but then had to wait for him because of the Olympics. And the Sean Burke playing style back then is kind of like how Hill plays now. It looks a little out of control sometimes, but at other times he's not wasting motion. So it's kind of a little confusing for Dallas. They don't have the same target to seemingly shoot at often, and it's working for him. So as long as it keeps working, if it ain't broke,
You don't
you
fix
don't
it.
fix it.
As the bell would sound, ding. He's
Dang.
right. If it ain't broke, you don't fix it. And look, Vegas is playing well right now. Look, Dallas, clean up a couple defensive areas. Don't try to sit back as much. I think they need to take it to Vegas a little bit more. If they have a lead, they should be fine.
You can't play safe.
No, you cannot play safe in the playoffs. This isn't 2000s hockey anymore.
Yeah, think about a lot. Well, the classic 4 teams, obviously, and I know it's a low level. Basically, what 13-1. So 52 I think it was 52-4 teams leading after 2 periods at this point in the playoffs. And the 4 teams that blew leads are teams that you would not expect to blow leads. Well, except for maybe Edmonton. But again, that happened way back in round 1 against LA, which was even more odd. Obviously, Edmonton, Tampa Bay, and you go through. Obviously, Dallas had a lead, but it wasn't after. You get the idea. But in this era, you just can't play safe. It doesn't work. Even if you still win by 1 goal, if you look at some of the numbers, for the most part, score effects really don't take effect until a team is up by, like, say, 3 goals. It's normally in these playoffs. We've seen the exceptions, like with Vegas in game 1, where they started like a house of fire, and then suddenly, where'd they go? And then late in the 3rd period in overtime, they came back. It's kind of like there's that middle part, sort of like the gnomes in the underpants from South Park. It's like, well, step 1, collect underpants. Step 2, don't know. Step 3, make profit. Same kind of thing. And, Jim, it feels like we're missing something from the Great North.
Yeah. So we got a couple hot messes in the NHL. Obviously, Arizona with the arena.
Get my napalm.
Wherever they end up, and the fact of the matter is the veto happened. They probably should have done 3 different referendums at 3 different times, and just tried to get the arena passed before doing all that other stuff. And now they're gonna have to look to renovate maybe the old Reunion Arena or not old Reunion, America West Arena, or try to get in with the Suns. And the fact of the matter is that the NHL has finally admitted that relocation is an option. Tells you all you need to know about this franchise that probably should have moved years ago.
You don't want to say it because obviously you're a journalist, a writer, this, that, whatever, and you build connections with people, and your heart and your gut and your head just go, oh, there's kind of a gut punch to it, but there's also a reality of, at some point, this isn't working. Like, how did you end up with an owner that is just, yeah, he's got money, that's great, but you spend $250,000 to $300,000 while your opponent is spending $2, $3, $4 million. Spend some dough.
That's a big problem. I mean, I said it from the beginning. The Coyotes could have made it Tampa West. You got the golf, you got everything there.
There's a lot to offer.
But guys just don't want to go there because there's no winning. You're not getting paid much. Guys they're just bringing in. They don't know. They really have a plan. It feels like they've been rebuilding for like 10 years. And they got to figure this out because you have 1 year left at Arizona State. It's all well and good, but how many guys are going to get tired of playing there? And it's not an NHL facility, and you only have 5,000 fans, and the PA's not happy about it because they're losing out on revenue.
Yeah.
So it's a hot mess, and most likely, if anything, it's probably Houston. I mean, it would be cool. Now, look, you've seen reports about the Connecticut governor potentially move maybe as a temporary home until things get settled out. But then you're going to have an Atlanta West situation where before or when, they had to be in, or was it Atlanta or Winnipeg? One of them had to be in the East before they could be in the West. And that threw off all travel. And that's probably what's going to have to happen if the Coyotes, if that's a legitimate option, playing in Hartford for a year, that's going to be a heck of a travel schedule.
Yeah, basically, I know we've said this a million times that time is not on Arizona's side. Really isn't now.
No, it's a year. You have 1 year because the NHL is looking for other places.
Yeah, they A, had enough, and B, now you're seeing this impact players. I mean, obviously, if you want to believe the Clayton Keller stuff fully, yeah.
I would imagine players are upset.
But obviously, the big, I guess it's kind of big in a way. Logan Cooley, obviously, going back to Minnesota.
That's huge because he most likely was coming to Arizona this year.
That was a direct. See, now that, unlike what happened with Clayton Keller, his dad, etc., that's a direct impact.
Right.
That's a tangible, you can see, hey, A happened, therefore I'm going to do B.
Because he can just play in Minnesota and get better.
Yep.
And not to stay here too long because we do need to touch on Toronto. But could you see a scenario if this stuff isn't resolved, he could go free agent and be like, I'm not signing with you guys?
I could see it. I don't know, by law, I mean, he could, yeah, I would think he would be able to.
Technically, he's not signed his ELC yet.
Yeah. So it would be like, what, a certain amount of time goes by. Yeah, he could.
I'm not saying he's going to do it, but it again, the longer this drags out and the longer there isn't a permanent home,
I could understand.
You could understand him wanting to go play for a winning team.
Yeah. I mean, he just wants to have certainty.
Right.
He really
does.
And
I think all the players do. I think all the players do.
And you don't see that right now, which has to be the biggest source of frustration. You see ownership not quite handling this. Oh, who are we kidding? Have found every reasonable and unreasonable way to squander almost every situation handed to them.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why it's now late
in the game.
And
it got late early. It got late very early.
Very.
Very. All right, so before we get out of here, the hot mess that is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yay.
They lose again in they lose in the playoffs. What a shock.
Mm-hmm.
This time it's the second round. Their top players no-showed again. I will say Auston Matthews had a lot of shots. Just again, Bobrovsky played out of his mind. He's playing like J.S. Jaguar did in 2003. Still, Jaguar shouldn't deserve the Conn Smythe Trophy. I don't care what anybody says. Sorry. When you have a goaltender that leads the NHL in shutouts in the postseason, yeah, okay. But anyway, we digress. Look, Kyle Dubas had comments last Monday about he wasn't sure if he was going to come back as a general manager. He said he wanted to, needed to take some time. Friday, the bomb drops that he and the Toronto Maple Leafs through Brendan Shanahan have parted ways. He's not going to be the GM anymore. Brendan Shanahan outlined detail after detail with the contract, what things went through. They wanted him back. And come Thursday, the agent comes back with a counter, and then an email says he wants to do it, and then he gets released. What a mess Toronto is. What a mess. And just lost Chris. But it's crazy to think, like, look, you're the general manager of the team, right? And you are doing your job and you're having all these negotiations with your boss, you're in on meetings on Wednesday, but there's radio silence. You're going back and forth on Tuesday. You're talking Monday. You've talked after the trade deadline. They want you back. He understands you got to talk to the agent. You want to keep it private. And then you do what you do. Sounds like a guy that probably didn't want to come back in the first place.
And you know what? And this is where I go completely contrarian and say, you know what, Kyle Dubas? I actually don't blame you that much for not wanting to come back.
No.
At the same time, it's also still your fault, as much as it is an organizational problem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 100%.
And that's where we're at. You have a core four where their best player in that round two was probably William Nylander.
Oh, 100%.
And of course, he's the one that's most involved in trade rumors even now.
Yeah, because his cap hit is his cap hit and his contract. Think about this: his contract that was so over the top that first year has the best value right now for what he's doing with that contract.
Go figure.
Go figure, right? You had a player who had a bad end of the regular season, was the best defenseman for the Leafs in the playoffs in Morgan Riley. Austin Matthews had a great first round. Tavares had a decent first round, whatever. Those guys had 0 goals in the second round. Can't win like that. Shane Matthew Nyes got hurt because he was playing really well.
Yeah.
Joseph Wall, Kyle Dubas did everything he was supposed to do at the trade deadline, made the team grittier, got the team better, pulled out all the stops. Maybe we won too many moves. All right, whatever. He made some great trades. He's made some not so great trades. His legacy is going to be giving those guys what they wanted, and he expected to get what he wanted. And that's not how it works.
Right.
Somebody had to draw a line.
Look, it's like that. It's like that classic song. You can't always get what you want.
Right.
And in this case, Kyle Dubas tried to go a bridge too far, and the bridge burned on him.
Yes, it did. It's crazy. I mean, look, the Leafs, they filled general manager's position now. They have a roster to fill. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, no trade move clauses kick in July 1st. William Nylander, I think, draft in June. Who's going to be the GM?
Oh, wait, because this is coming. You're looking for a GM. You're inevitably going to probably be looking for a
coach as well.
Yeah.
And they want to go with an experienced guy, but they had one in Lou. But again, I always said Lou was just a figurehead there because the old guard doesn't really like to be a part of a team. They like to do things their way, and they want all the say. And I think that was part of it, besides money and all that stuff. I think Dubas wanted to eliminate certain things, and he wanted to have all the say, and they probably didn't want to do it that way.
There was a power struggle. It always is.
But now all the tension's on Brendan Shanahan. And like it is here in New York on Chris Drury, who's probably getting input from Glenn Sather, who was most likely that's happening. But now all eyes are going to be on Brendan Shanahan, and he's been there 9 years. And you know what? When does it become the onus goes on him, and they have to start reevaluating him as the team president?
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just that he's aged like 15 years in the last 5, but yes. And that's because now the eyes are squarely on him.
Right, exactly.
This next decision may be one of his last.
It could be his last. It could be his last. It could be his last. Not gonna lie, it could be his last. It's gonna be crazy to think that that this could be his last decision as the team president and of hockey operations with the Tom.
That's crazy to think, isn't it?
But you know what? This is going to be his 5th GM. It could be another coach. Like, eventually, something's got to give. And the core 4 is probably not coming back. Somebody's going. They have so many needs to fill. It's just one thing after another with these Canadian teams. Now Calgary's going to add, looks like they're going to add Craig Conroy, Dave Nonis, Jerome McGinley. Yeah, I mean, those are good hires. I mean, that's the way you need to do it. Then you got Winnipeg. It's just the stuff. The action never stops, and the Leafs continue to give it to us, even though they're not in the playoffs anymore.
Yeah, Canada is entertaining for hockey,
Yes, it is.
even when
So
they're
entertaining.
not playing.
Exactly. Exactly. But this has been the Full Press Hockey Weekly Show here on Full Press NHL Twitter, on Full Press Coverage on YouTube, Twitch as well. You can get it iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I've been your host, the voice of Full Press Hockey, Jim Berenger, alongside Chris Wassel and Ian behind the scenes. Hope everybody enjoys. Enjoy Game 3 between Florida and Carolina, as well as Dallas and Vegas on Tuesday night. Take care. We'll be back again.